later. But I wanted to kind of start out on how we even got here. You know, in 1905, the Forest Service was initiated, and under the leadership of Gifford Pinchot during the Roosevelt administration, Gifford Pinchot took a real big, eager intent on understanding the need to have federal ownership and management of these lands. He was out there a lot and did a lot of exploring, and he realized that there was a tragedy in the commons. The destruction of resources for short-term gain. That was occurring all over the nation, and that was a real important thing for him. So I want to kind of talk about the boundaries, the things that we have to follow within the Forest Service, and especially I'll start narrowing this down a little bit toward the range focus. So since 1905, since the Forest Service was enacted, there's been a lot of acts that have been passed that have started forming our umbrella, that I like to call it. The Multiple Use Sustainability Act, Sustainable Yield Act, the Wilderness Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, we all know that is NEPA, the National Forest Management Act. There's a whole bunch of acts that somehow trickle down, and that creates our umbrella. And as these acts pass, regulation and policy come down, and that forms the boundaries in which we have to manage in between. So, for example, Richard Nixon signed the National Environmental Policy Act that created the Council for Environmental Quality, and that council is what outlines our obligations through NEPA. So that tells us how we're supposed to work with the public to the matters of the environment and our natural resources. So, with all of that, it still leaves it a little bit abroad. So, what has really helped us is a lot of court cases that's come about. A lot of these court cases have addressed certain things as the legal status of our term grazing permits, grazing statutes, the different terms and conditions that are part of our grazing permits, and a lot of these permits related to the NEPA process. That's just to name a few. There's been a lot of court cases that have occurred over time. So what did we used to do? What came up with the Tonto? So right after the Civil War, a lot of the Army bases in Arizona, you probably all know this, they started posting them. We're going to start bringing people into them, although they were really minimal. But when the tension started easing throughout the area, all the ranches started spreading in the area. And I'm referring a lot to the Tonto Creek area. Who wouldn't want to be there? It's at the confluence of the Salt River and Tonto Creek. You have these beautiful floodplains that you can round up cattle on, lots of water, lots of feed. But by 1906, 1907, about a year or two after the Forest Service was enacted, we started managing these areas with permits. We started limiting the livestock herds a little bit, we started establishing rotations, we started some monitoring. And that was important. Like you mentioned earlier, there was a tragedy in the commons. We kind of needed some sort of game plan on how we were going to manage all this. So, a little bit of picture, I thought that was kind of cool, 1923 Roosevelt Lake. So, what are we doing now? We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Ken kind of mentioned this. The Tonto manages 104 grazing allotments throughout with almost 3 million acres, and that's spread out between 6 different districts. We run, he mentioned this too, Ken also mentioned this, about 25,000 head of cows. That's what we have permitted on all our grazing permits. That's not necessarily what we run right now. Right now we're looking at about 61% permitted due to various things, range improvement development, drought, a variety of different issues. We manage these allotments on so many vegetation types. We saw that earlier in the presentation of forestry. And that's ranging on elevations from 1,300 feet up to 7,900 feet. So we're dealing with a lot of land and a lot of different vegetation types. We have a saying, it's from the spine to the spine. It's very true in everything in between. And that makes it real difficult and real challenging and real rewarding for us to figure out how to manage those different ecosystems. Different ecosystems vary. You can have 15 different vegetation types in one allotment, and each one of those vegetation types might be a different kind of management. So this is our sheep driveway. I think it hasn't worked out. We've run sheep since 2000.
It's been 2 years.
2 years. So this was the last photo that they took from them. Last time they moved sheep with the sheep driveway. So what is a permit anyways? And I've referring to permits, I'm referring to our term grazing permits. So that encompasses our umbrella. I told you about those laws, those acts that are passed, the boundaries, our regulations and policy, and a lot of those court cases. It's really, started to create what we issue now as a term grazing permit. Our term grazing permits are 10 years. They have 3 different parts to them. They have Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Part 1 and 2, those have technically all been determined by law and policy, by court cases, so those pretty much stay the same. That includes what the allotment is, how many acres it is, how the cattle will be branded, that kind of stuff. With that, in Part 3, we have a lot of special instructions, and those kind of instructions are things like, making sure that we have the right infrastructure. All of our different allotments, we've instituted different grazing rotations in all of these, and all of these different, we have fences up there, water developments and corrals, and all those different things that are tied to these grazing permits. And so we tell, we have them in there, all the different ways that they need to manage and they need to maintain these improvements. So also, part of Part 3 of our grazing permit is our allotment management plan. Now, our allotment management plans are based almost solely on the NEPA document we write, the National Environmental Policy analysis that we do, which we include the public. We're looking at different ways to work with the forest plan, work within our boundaries. And so that is our little overarching umbrella too, outside of the big one that we have to follow. And inside of that, we have to specify the prescriptions that we use. We have all these different veg types, different requirements by our ranchers, and so those kind of things we play into the allotment plan. And on a yearly basis, we work with the annual operating instructions. So that tells that we work with the permittee, we work with our rancher, and we're telling them, hey, so this year, we work with the permittee, we're going to have so many cows out there. We're going to graze in certain pastures, certain improvements are going to be maintained, and that's on a yearly basis. Places we're going to monitor. So with all that said, a little bit of background, I want to go into where we're going, the things that we are concerned about when we do our environmental analysis, when we look out on the ground. So we're going to talk about climate change. Biggest thing, that actually incorporates everything we have here. I'm not talking about having oceanfront property in Arizona or anything like that, although I would like my real estate prices to go up. I'm looking at the fact that in the Southwest, we're going to have more prolonged droughts. We're going to have times when it rains where it's going to be even harder, longer, deeper precipitation. It may not be at the same time of year that our different plants are going to be able to use it. Grasses do have different kinds of needs for precipitation and brush trees, so all that takes into account. Species shift. So we're talking about, we've had some precious fire in the past, so now we have a species shift in our ecosystem. We've also had an increase in invasive species. So anything that isn't from here, that's what's really important. So those invasive species are often more adapted to fire than our own ecosystem is, especially our Sonora deserts and our desert ecosystems. And that can really change the species in these ecosystems. And that's really important for us. We try to get on top of species management or invasive species management as much as possible. We have several documents that we try to adhere to, and that's just going to be something that's going to be more of an issue in the future. So one more thing before I bring Tonto here is he's going to kind of talk about this too, is with all of that said, we have a lot of work to do. And we can't get all of that work done if we didn't have all of these partners. We work real closely with the University of Arizona. We get great science from them. We have great help for cooperative monitoring. Arizona State University, we actually have a few people here today that are from Arizona State University that we use as students. That's been a great success for us. The NRCS, our sister agency, also in the Department of Agriculture. The Tonto NRCD. Volunteers, we can't get some of our fences built without some of our special interest groups and our volunteers. That just plays a huge role in what we do out there. I am one person managing, 200,000 acres. You can't do that as one person. You need all of these people to help you.
What does NRCD stand for?
Natural Resource, I'm sorry, I'm not talking about this stuff very well. Natural Resource Conservation District. So I don't know if anyone recognizes this photo here, but there's a couple people sitting in this room that are in this photo. This is my way to introduce Neal from the 76th Ranch. He is my speaker, my opening speaker today.
Thank you, Jane. Can you all hear me? I said back there, what thing got a shortage?
Yes, it does.
No, it's when they move their hand.
I've got a shortage, so we'll probably work it out. First of all, my name is Neal. I've been here since dirt. We have the 76th Ranch down by Tonto Basin, north end of Tonto Basin. In managing the ranch, we have a lot of partners. The Forest Service, of course, is a partner. The National Resource Conservation Service, very important partner, has helped us develop a lot of conservation programs that we wouldn't have been able to do without the Forest Service. The Tonto NRCD is our local district. I'm on that board also, and we have done a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. There was one time we couldn't get NRCS money because it was only used on private lands, and some ranchers and some other folks went back to Washington, D.C. and told them how much private land we have in Gila County, and they decided that they would let us use NRCS money also, and so we've done a lot of fantastic projects with that money for all the critters out there. Last, but probably the most important is Jim Springer. Where's Jim? I saw him in there. Did he leave?
He's right here.
Right here. There he is. I tell you what, the guy's a walking encyclopedia of range management. That's him. You notice he doesn't have the shovel. He can't already put the shovel in the man. He's over there right now. He's happening. That's my son, 11, and what's that guy's name?
Byron Lambert.
Who?
Byron Lambert.
Byron, yeah. Byron. They're out monitoring about 9 miles back from that ranch. Our ranch is about 6 miles wide and about 9 miles deep. The ranch house is about 3,000 feet. The middle of the ranch is about 6,000 feet. It's a nice flat ranch. A guy over at Jake Thorne one time was saying, "Troy, you have one of the largest ranches in Arizona." And I said, no, it's just an average size ranch. And they said, if you flatten that baby out, it'll be one of the largest ranches in Arizona. And that's probably too close. We've been through droughts, floods, fires, people, a lot of different kinds of people out there come across that ranch. Last year we had like 400 off-road vehicles that came on the ranch. And now on our ranch, they don't drive through the corner of the land. They come between the barn and the house. They come within about 30 feet of the house. And we have a creek. Our ranch house sits where Wright Creek and Tonto Creek come together. And that's probably the worst place on Tonto Creek to try to cross there in the flood, because it all comes together out of Wright Creek and Tonto Creek. And we get people coming in there that want to go across when it's 2 or 3 feet deep. I had a guy show up with 2 new Polaris Rangers that he had rented, and he was driving one, and his wife was driving the other, and they had their kids in there. And he said, "You see here on the map, this is where you come through to go back on the forest." And I said, "Yeah, but the creek is flooded. You can't go through there." And he said, "Well, I just rented these Rangers." He said, "Can't I just try to go through there?" And I said, "Partner, you can drown those kids. That river's running 3 or 4 foot deep." And then when I said drown the kids, and the wife started talking. She said, "We're not going in that river." So we get a lot of things out there that really get pretty crazy because a lot of times they really don't know what's happening. We probably have a gate open and a fence cut somewhere on that ranch right now. And I don't know where it's at, but it's out there. People will come through, they'll have 6 Jeeps. The first Jeep will tell them, "Be sure to close the gates." Well, the first guy closes the gate, the last Jeep didn't hear that. So they go through and they leave the gate open. So it's really a struggle of management. But we love it. We love where we live, we love what we do. We've been there for 30 years, and we're there every day. We know that ranch like the back of our hand. We have partners, Forest Service comes. Eric and I talk a lot about We know where all the springs are. We know the ones that are drying up. We know the ones that are coming back. And it's a full-time job. I think Chief Seattle probably said it best when he said, "I love the land like a baby loves his mother's heartbeat." We love the land.